Welcome to Kids Express.
Join us as we see kids express their love for Jesus
while developing their character.
on Kids Express!
Today we're going to meet a young lady who has a passion for serving God, whether it is in her community or other parts of the world she has visited. I'm Aunt Francine.
And I am Sofia. Can you guess where in the world today's guest comes from? Can you identify what state? If you guessed Michigan, you're correct. Let's welcome Riley.
Welcome, Riley.
Hi.
Ooh, this looks delicious. Uh-oh, I think it's something that I have a weakness for. What is it?
It's cherry brownies.
Cherry brownies. Brownies
looks
with
good.
cherries in them. Oh, I like cherries and I like brownies. Yeah. We're going to be diving into that for sure.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Michigan.
Michigan there's a lot of really interesting facts about Michigan, but one of my favorites is that it has the most freshwater shoreline, and when I go, I think it's a beach because there is sand and you can't even see the other side. Only on a really clear day can you kind of see the skyscrapers in Chicago.
You're right.
And there are dunes, and I love climbing the dunes and watching the sunset. The sunset is always beautiful there.
I love
And because of the Great Lakes, since there's so much water, they have over 116 lighthouses.
Wow.
So there are a lot of lights. And we get to experience all 4 seasons. And so I love, when you're driving during fall, you can see it's like fire all around you, and sometimes you can see pink and purple, and it's really cool.
It is cool. I remember I used to grow up in Michigan. I don't know if you knew that. But
That is so cool.
I loved running on those sand dunes. It's like
Yes.
you can't stop. You just keep going and you're moving your feet as fast as you can down those sand dunes.
Normally I fall down and I tumble down.
But the water was always cold.
Always cold.
It's
It's pretty good on a hot day.
Yeah, it feels refreshing on a hot day. You're right. But you're right. So you go on the west side of Michigan often.
We live near Lake Michigan. Yeah.
Okay, very nice. So I hear that there is something about these cherries. I think Traverse City is famous. I think they have a whole festival, like a whole week, and like 500,000 people come to Traverse City just for the cherry festival. And so I think that's why you made these brownies, and we have cherries and dried cherries. So yeah. That's kind of interesting, but
Yeah, it is.
yeah, I really like Michigan, and it's interesting because it also has, I think, 3 animals on its flag. I don't think there's another state. Do you know what it has on there?
It has an elk, a moose, and an eagle.
You got it. Good job. It has all 3 of those. That's kind of interesting.
I love animals, so that's great.
That's why you remembered it. So tell us a little bit how you are sharing Jesus.
Recently, we had a free Taco Tuesday night where our church brought a local food truck, and the community was able to come, and all the families were able to come. And my favorite part was I was able to give out free books to the children that came, and we weren't just giving out the free tacos and the free books, but we were also able to tell the community that we had just started a new program where we would bring the children in on Saturdays, and we would be able to give them a hot meal, and we'd be able to have a church service, and they'd be able to learn about Jesus. So that was really good for us.
Yeah, so they're having Sabbath without realizing that it's Sabbath. You're having some kind of program. That's really wonderful. I like that.
is.
You know, how did the people react toward it?
It was very nice. They loved and we were able to help. We were bringing them in, and we became a big family kind of, and we're all together. And we just love being around each other.
So did they come back to the church?
Yes, we have a lot of people that come back now.
Okay, really?
And then the children come a lot of Saturdays, and it's really great.
Yeah.
Wow, so you're building that relationship with people.
Wow.
That's very key.
I gave out books. Well, my mother found an organization, and they gave out free books to people that are doing events.
Oh, wow.
And we were able to give them to the children, and it was really great that we were able to do that.
It's powerful.
So a lot of the children may not know about Jesus, and so sometimes the parents even have to read to the children, and so that's great because it brings in a little bit of Jesus to their homes.
Right.
Wow.
Right. You're a big witness.
Yeah.
And you're not only doing it in your community. Will you share with us a little bit about what you're doing even outside of the United States?
So I actually recently went to Africa as well, and we found a family near one of our hotels, and they were not in the best situation, and we played with them, and we taught them our games, they taught us their games, and it was great that we were able to hang out. And one of the few last days that we were about to leave, we were going to church, and they asked us if they could come with us, and we took them to church, and it was just really great.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you know, it's very interesting that when you are spending the time with people, they want a little bit of that peace, or they see the love that you have for them, and they want more of what you have.
Yes.
Maybe they can't describe what that is and what that looks like, but even no matter, that's a universal language. So even if you can't speak a particular language, like what did they speak? Where did you go in Africa?
We were in Ghana, Africa.
Okay.
So this was near one of our hotels, and they taught us their games, and they tried to teach us a little bit of their language, and I was able to cook with them in some of their traditional meals.
So it's kind of interesting because could you speak their language? I mean, what do they speak?
Not really, but Akwaba means welcome.
Okay.
So that was pretty much as far as I could go while we were there, but.
That's interesting. So we need to say Kwaba to those of you in Ghana, but you know, that's interesting that God can use you no matter where you are.
Yeah.
You can learn a little bit more about their culture, and they can learn a little bit more about you, but more importantly, they can learn about
God.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
So it seems like you have everything put together. God's using you in big ways. You're finding these opportunities to witness, and I know that we're going to hear more from you later in another time, but you are doing a lot of witnessing for other people. But even when you have things all seeming perfect, it seems like you have it all together, you have good parents. What's one thing, if you wanted to be more like Jesus, what would that be that you would want to work on?
I would want to work more on discipline, kind of.
Discipline?
Yes. I'm pretty disciplined. Like, I do homeschool, so I get up in the morning, I do everything that I need to.
So you have a routine?
Yes, I have a routine. But like when it comes to violin practice or going to my violin lessons, it's like the day just goes by too quick, and I don't really get to my violin, so I'd like to work on that a lot more.
So there's certain things that you don't like,
Yes.
and you feel like you need to be doing them.
Yeah.
And so your mom
practice
has to
more.
remind you
Yeah.
or something like that. And do you feel like you have to be disciplined with other people too? Like
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah, and what does that look like when you say you need to be more disciplined? You gave an example of like practicing your violin. Is there something else that you feel like discipline?
I'd like to work on obedience too, I guess.
Part of that discipline.
Yeah.
I think we all have to work on obedience sometimes. How about you? Do you have a situation when you have to be obedient?
Sometimes when I use my toys and then I don't want to clean them up because I want to eat dinner because my mom calls me to eat dinner. She's like, clean them up, and then I don't want to, but I know I have to do it because, yeah.
So you have to do things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of us work on that, but you know, it's our parents' responsibility to discipline our children. Do you know that the Bible has a verse about that? It's in Proverbs, I think it's 29. Can we go, would you happen to read that for us?
Yeah.
I think some of us know this verse. Proverbs 29, verse 17.
Discipline your children, and they will give you peace. They will bring you delights you desire.
So parents have a responsibility by God to discipline
Children.
their children.
Yeah.
And, you know, but with that comes a responsibility on your part. What is your responsibility?
I have to listen to my parents.
Yeah.
Okay? And you're learning, and the reason that your parents have to discipline you, and hopefully it's not, you know, making corrections necessarily, but it's to have you self-discipline.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that word, self-discipline?
Yes.
What does it mean to be self-disciplined?
I think it means that you have to be able to stay doing one thing and finish it.
Without being told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. And you know, there are some times where we have a decision to make because we can be active in our discipline, okay, in which you're dealing with it at the moment of how something's happening. For example, when your mom is calling you to clean up your toys, you are self-disciplining at that point, and you're active, and you're going to either make a choice to follow what your mom does. There's another kind that is called reactive. Like if somebody is upset at you and is ready to maybe say something hurtful or to attack you physically, you have a reactive responsibility. What would you do if something negative happens to you? What would you do?
Well, what I would do is tell a parent or tell an adult.
It is important to talk about that, especially with role models like your parents, for example. And you know, they can help shape what we're thinking. Because sometimes it's our thoughts that make a big difference in knowing what to do and how to handle a situation when something doesn't seem fair or is mean toward you. You know, there's another aspect that's called proactive, and that means planning ahead of what you're going to do in a tough situation or changing the situation around. For example, if you have somebody that is constantly teasing you, and you know that they're coming and you're going to have to face them again on another school day.
You'll already be ready.
You'll already be knowing what you're going to say and how you're going to handle that situation. So using these self-discipline strategies is a good way of thinking about what you're going to do in a tough situation. And that's part of being disciplined. And that's why I'm so glad we have parents that love us and are still willing to discipline us because they're teaching us how to follow like Christ would have us live.
Yeah, I think it's time for a question.
I think so too.
This question is for our guest and Aunt Francine. Oliver, who lives in Australia, asks, what has been your favorite country or state that you have visited and why?
Ooh, would you like to go?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, I personally loved Australia.
Wow.
I mean, I lived in America before I went to Australia, so I just saw pigeons and sometimes I see fish like in lakes or oceans. But when I went to Australia, it was like everything was so exotic to me. And like when I was making breakfast in our kitchen, I'd see whales jumping out of the water. And it was just so beautiful, and seeing the koalas climb the trees and the kangaroos jumping. It was just so beautiful to me.
That would be amazing. And a little bit of what heaven's going to be like. Wow, without cages. Or and the koalas might be nicer too. I have to say, I might go for a state. I think I have a special heart for Michigan, I have to admit, because I grew up in Michigan and I loved going to Mackinac Island. And we had a camp that was Camp Asabo, and I grew up going out in nature. And I love being out in nature. So that's kind of a hard one. As far as countries, I don't know if I have a favorite country. I mean, I loved Russia, Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, there's lots of countries, Grand Canyon. There's lots of areas that I like, but I can't say I have one that's my favorite. I like aspects of every state, every country, and I'm so glad that God gives us the opportunity for some of us to be able to travel and visit those countries, or states, wherever you might be. So, you know, I really appreciate how we are being disciplined, because you're doing something out in the community, in your community, but also around the world. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
I'm not just trying to work in my community and around the world. I'm actually a child ambassador for Child Impact, and I'm trying to just bring awareness about the people that are not in better situations. And so I just try to bring awareness, and I try to raise money for those people and help.
So you have a big vision and a heart for people that are not as fortunate as we are here in the United States. Some of us have very privileged, and some of them don't have enough food, or their family situations aren't. And that's why having good discipline, you have to schedule your time carefully, and being a good time management, and having all these different things that we need to be able to have in Jesus. And so, you know, whether you may not have the opportunity like Riley has to be able to travel different states or different countries, but yet there is things that you can do right in your area. And you know, we can all practice a little more discipline. So when your parents discipline you, don't worry about that, because they are trying to have you learn more about God and be self-disciplined. So thanks for joining us on
Kids Express!